I've just switched to boards or death, basically.
Boards are death.
Yeah.
That's the title of this podcast. I love that. Boards are death. Sierra Blair. Welcome to the Testpiece podcast. This podcast is about all things high-level climbing. How to go from good to great. I'm your host, Joshua Horsley. I've been climbing for over 30 years. We recently updated our Patreon, and now you get exclusive content from the guests that you love. You get your episodes before everyone else, and they're ad-free. Try it out now at patreon.com/testpiece with a free 7-day trial. Okay, let's start the show. Sierra Blair, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me. Yeah, sorry for cutting you off there. I'm just excited.
Oh, that's okay. Sierra, I was thinking about this intro and just listing your accomplishments and highlighting all the context around your climbing. But like the way I think of you, Sierra, is as a comp climber. It's just, I guess that shows my, how long I've been in the scene. And, I remember you in the World Cups. And honestly, when you were doing all those World Cups, it honestly wasn't that popular or supported in the US. Thankfully, that's changed. And now, Sierra, you're like a moonboarder. You're one of, I was going to say one of us, like, I guess because I was never much of a comp climber. I'm now a board climber. And that's not to say you're not outside crushing and doing that thing, but I love this new board phase. Although then I was thinking you just did a board comp last year that you won with ravioli biceps in a singly stacked field. And I want to know about those two worlds, kind of combining and more about that comp.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a really interesting career, obviously, but I'm very happy to be where I am right now with climbing outside and then obviously training on the board all the time. That competition was actually the last competition I've competed in. And it was really cool because I'd kind of been slowing down on comps and really only choosing ones that I was super pumped on. And so the second they were like, do you want to do a team board comp? I was like, yeah, obviously 2016 MoonBoard, like count me in.
Don't you think there could be more of those comps? I just did a podcast with Michael Rosado from Tension, and we talked a lot about the future of board competitions. Like it could be a thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that is crazy to me too, is at least on the gym side, they're so easy to set up because there's no route setting involved. So the prep is just, a lot less impactful for the gym. And plus everyone is just so psyched on board climbing that I really hope we see more of them in the future.
I like that video you did with ravioli biceps done by my buddy Miguel Climbs. Great video. And lots of views, lots of popularity. I just think you and ravioli are a great pair. I just want to put out there like more of that. That was really fun to watch and see you guys compete and win.
Yeah, that was super exciting. We had actually shot that video about a month before the board competition, just kind of like two separate things, right? Like the videos that we did with Miguel was for Moon. And I think, I went to Vegas in November to shoot that with ravioli. And then in December was the board comp a couple of weeks later. So everything just lined up really well.
Is 2016 your favorite set of the MoonBoard?
I think so. It's hard to beat the classic. I mean, I really haven't spent a ton of time on 2019. I'll say that. So I've only done one session on that. The gym used to have a 2017. So I've done a fair amount on 2017 as well. But now the gym's got a 2024. Which is where I'm spending a lot of my time. So I do have access to a 2016 and a 2024 at the moment. And then I've got my old home 2016, which is in storage at my condo. My ceilings aren't tall enough, much to my chagrin. And then I've got the 2025 Mini as well.
Ooh, we'll talk more about the Mini later. I feel like you won't make that mistake again about having low ceilings. When I was shopping for houses with my wife and ended up in this new place, my realtor was like, why are you going into every garage with a tape measure? And it was like a big joke because she represented a bunch of my other friends who moved in this area and were climbers. And they're like, what are you guys doing? Like, who cares how tall the garage is? It's like, I care a lot.
I know. It's hilarious. And I mean, I think in hindsight, I really wish I had moved somewhere that had taller ceilings. But long story short, when I bought my condo, it was basically like in a rush. I needed somewhere to live. And I wanted to be in a safe area and, with what I could afford. And so this is kind of what worked out. And one of my friends was nice enough to let me move my MoonBoard from my house at the time to his workshop. And then, once he moved his workshop to a smaller space that couldn't accommodate the board, then the board had to, officially go into storage.
It'll come out someday. It'll happen.
I know. So many people have like offered to buy it, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I will be buried with it. It's never leaving me.
Do you have the good yellow holds too that are big and not too shallow poured? I feel like once you find the holds that you really want and are nicely poured, those are invaluable because you never know if you order a new set, it may not be just like you like it.
Yeah, I would say my set's pretty on average. I've definitely been on bigger pours, but I can't say if I've seen anything more shallow than mine. But yeah, mine feel like pretty average between the like handful of 2016s I've been on.
So, Sierra, I remember on your Instagram seeing you train a ton on slabs at, I don't know if it was your house and like your kind of smaller training facility. And like, it's just so interesting now that like what you have at your house is boards. And I think of boards as being kind of more brutal and sometimes like part of the like really young crew. And so I don't know, I guess I want to hear about that transition of going from techie, compy slab in your house to now brutal, steep 2016 tiny crimps.
Yeah. So my old home wall, which is built in an indoor racquetball court, for anyone who doesn't know, an indoor racquetball court is 20 feet by 40 feet and it's 20 feet high and is basically built in this U. So I built that in 2015 to train for comps, basically, because I needed to get better on vert and slab, and the gyms in town, they just weren't setting, the level of climbing I needed for competition boulders. We've all seen a commercial set versus a competition set. Like, they just vary drastically. And especially in 2015, like, it was like, I can't even say like pulling teeth to get the gym to set for it because they just wouldn't. So I had to take matters into my own hands. And then, I did that to train for the comps, train for the World Cups. And then the first time I got on a MoonBoard was in 2018. Someone else in town had gotten one, and I was like, man, this thing's like pretty great. You can just like rip through boulders. There's like a bunch of stuff said. I think it'd be good for me to build some more power. And I mean, I had the space at the home wall, so we just replaced a section with the MoonBoard. And I saw like a huge jump in my power. And at that time, I was still competing, so I was still trying to stay sharp on the technical boulders, but also training power, which was really useful. And then obviously as time went on, now that I'm not competing as much, I've just switched to, boards or death, basically.
Boards or death.
Yeah.
That's the title of this podcast. I love that. Boards or death. Sierra Blair. Okay. 2015, I think the last time I competed in nationals was maybe 2014, I want to say. And I feel like things really were changing around the 2012, 2014. I felt like 2014, it was still pretty straightforward climbing, but slabs were becoming a lot more important to your overall result, that technical ability. And yeah, I just take me back to that time and your style and what you leaned towards in climbing, because competition was what you were doing, or was your main focus, and like what that evolution look like during that time?
Yeah, so I would say, for the earlier part of my competition career, from let's just say 2002 when I started climbing to 2015, I was never the physically strongest climber. Now I'm still not the physically strongest climber. Amongst like a group of pros, like I will certainly not be the physically strongest under like any circumstances, but I was always really good at exploiting what I had so I could just absolutely maximize it. And I think what happened is I was pretty proficient on, the classic, like old school technical slab we think of with like the tiny feet, similar to what you'd see outside. And then I distinctly remember at nationals in 2015, there was a slab boulder that had, it might have had flat holds on it, just like big macros, right? And I couldn't figure it out, and I was always someone who went into every competition trying to be so prepared. And I was like, man, you know what? Like, I've got to solve this problem. Like, I need to be able to train on this stuff. The gym's not helping me. And that's not shading the gyms, by the way. Like, I know they've got businesses and, I'm one person who needs this like really weird skill set. I'm like, okay, let's take matters into our own hands. And so, yeah, just got on to like designing and building the wall, and then really having the flexibility to have set what I needed to train to get better at that.
You said you were really good at exploiting what you did have to get up. And I'm curious, what did you have? Like, what is your superpower and how did you use that to send back then?
Yeah, I mean, back then, I think it's just creativity and decent technique. I think that got me up a lot of boulders. I mean, I wasn't weak by any means, but power climbing was not my absolute strength. I was getting up something with the least amount of effort possible. Not that I wasn't trying, but just because I've been so good at maximizing like how not strong I was. Even when I started climbing, I think it took me 2 years before I could do a pull up, and that's like kind of represents my general power baseline is not high.
Yeah, now you're just nothing but death or boards or board. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Just straight power crimping and yeah.
MoonBoard or death.
That's what it was. Yeah. It's interesting that when you see these weaknesses in your climbing that you instantly go for it. Like, so you were saying 2015, you get on the slab, you're like, this is new. I don't get this. So then you built something. And then, you're kind of saying that maybe your physical abilities aren't your superpower. And so now you're diving into the MoonBoard and it's just like, is that kind of how you like to approach climbing is like, I'm weak at this or this is required and I don't have it. I'm going all in.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I was doing competitions, I would really, man, there's like nothing worse than like you're in a competition and you're like fit and amongst the field and there's just like a move. It's like a mansole or like the slab I was talking about. And the majority of the field just like does it with ease. And you're like, for some reason, I'm just not good at this. And it's like really impacted my result. So when I was in competitions, it was easy because things can get isolated so quickly. You're like, oh, I couldn't figure out that mansole that the rest of the field could figure out in 5 minutes. I really need to train that. Like, let's get better at that. Now that I climb outside more, I definitely notice weaknesses, but it's a little different because, like when you're working a hard boulder, you just keep trying it until you do it. So, you can notice a little bit of moves that you're like, it just seems like over these past 5 boulders, I was bad at pinching or this type of move, but you also just get to kind of keep like banging your head against the wall. So sometimes it's like, am I weak at it or is it just a hard move? And I have to keep trying it,
Well, that's interesting that in outdoors, you don't have to go back into your lab and figure out what's weak. You kind of can just try the move and that is your training. Well, it seemed like you got a lot of success from those efforts in 2015 and building that wall. You had a great run in competition climbing. Did those efforts pay off? Like, did, like diving into slab and kind of corridor, that new style, really level up your climbing?
I think so because I think it put me in this area where I was one of the only people really focusing on slab and vert, especially in the US. And it would just really pay off every once in a while. I mean, more than every once in a while, but I could just get on pretty hard slab and be like very comfortable on it. And you know what? Sometimes like it just comes down to being the person who can execute it when no one else can. And you're just, hoping that your all around climbing is good enough, but sometimes your just super strength saves you in a round.
So why'd you leave the traditional competition, Sierra? I know we still have you, maybe boards are coming, but why'd you stop doing the normal I don't know what to call it, competitions,
Yeah, just like all the comps I did ever.
Yeah, just those.
I don't know. I think it was something that happened really slowly, but the kind of like the nail in my coffin, I feel like, it was my 3rd back injury. And I did a couple comps after it, but there was a period of 6 months where I didn't fall off a single boulder because I didn't want to irritate my back. For anyone who doesn't know, I've got a bulging, torn, and herniated disc in L5S1. And so after that 3rd injury, right, I think I did one competition afterwards and it was like, okay, but my back just like didn't feel right after it. So for the next 6 months, I literally just moonboarded because I was going to be closer to the ground and I would try and get on comp boulders, but I'd have to bail because I just couldn't take like even like a planned drop of like that impact, like with my disc, like squishing out. And then I did the Master Day boulder in Chile in November of 2022 and it went really well. I placed 2nd, but I had to basically down climb the climbs as far as I could after I I almost sent everything. I think I left like 2 boulders undone in the competition, but I almost more or less flashed everything. And I just remember getting to the top, down climbing as far as I could. And every time I drop, I just get that like zing of it, like hitting the nerve. And so after that, I was like, shoot, like, what am I going to do? Like, this competition went really well, but I'm sketched out about my back. And the other thing is, like, competition moves are so much riskier because they're so wild. Even if you're sticking them, right? Like, they're just like pretty out of control sometimes. And so I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. My next competition was going to be a couple months later. It was going to be in April of 2023. And I decided at the beginning of 2023, I'm going to start climbing outside and getting beta videos to put online. I'll climb as hard as I can, that I feel comfortable, that doesn't hurt my back. I'll cherry pick boulders for those reasons that I, don't feel nervous on hurting my back on. And I think the second weekend I went outside, it was my friend Zach Levy, who I climb with a lot in Arizona. We went to Oak Flat, which is one of my favorite areas here. And he wanted to get on the Pyramid, which is this nasty V10 down in Atlantis. And I didn't even initially have plans to get on it. I was just like, whatever, I'm here to climb. And I like almost flashed it. Like I just got on it and almost did it. And I was like, oh, cool. And so then I sent it that day and it really just like lit something under me that, I can climb hard outside, and all of my moonboarding I'd done for the past however many months had like really prepped me well for Oak Flat, which wasn't even the plan, right? I was still training for comps, but it just lit this fire under me. I started to get on more hard stuff at Oak Flat, just did better and better. And then the story is kind of crazy because it's just got a bit of a fairy tale ending. I was supposed to do a national cup at Flowstone in April of 2023. And I'd been working this V12 at Oak Flat called Double D Low. And so my original plan was I was going to keep working Double D Low until the 2 weeks before Flowstone. And then I was going to like switch back onto some comp boulders to be prepped for the comp. But then I still hadn't sent Double D Low. So I was like, okay, a week ahead of time, I'm going to switch back to comp boulders. And I still hadn't sent it. And then I was like, okay, like I'll try it at the beginning of the week and still go to the comp. Still didn't send it. And I just had this feeling where I felt like if I went to the competition, I would be taking something away from myself climbing outside. Where in the past, when I was competing all the time, I felt like if I climbed outside, it was going to take away something from my competition. So I decided not to go to the competition and I went out and sent Double DO that weekend. So my first V12, very exciting. And it was kind of cool because it really cemented the fact that I had made the right decision, which I think it would have been the right decision even if I didn't send that weekend. But it's always nice when it's like, didn't go to the comp, but guess what? I sent my project that I've just been like busting my butt on.
Damn, Sierra, I knew that you had hurt your back, but I didn't realize it was so serious. That's a bummer. That's not a fun way to deal with things. Although if you saw me chuckle during you telling a story about getting hurt, it was because it sounded like Ravioli Biceps, same story of finding the moonboard. He's like, oh, I broke my foot, so I had to like stay low. So that was where if you heard me chuckle while you're telling me that you're hurt, that's where it was. And I love this idea of amor fati. It means love fate. And instead of just being like, oh, I can't do the thing that I was doing, like, I'm just going to be bummed. It's like, oh, but I can do this thing and this is great. And then you get that whole mindset shift. That's a nice little fairy tale ending. I like that.
Yeah, it was cool. It really was just an amazing like thing to have happen. I feel like in climbing, and still very psyched on that boulder.
So what's your technique like now after going from tons of slab, delicate competition, cordo, a bunch of moonboarding and into outdoors? Like you're kind of like checking the spectrum of different ways in climbing. Like, have you kind of like picked up something from each of those?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've got a lot of fight power, honestly, and that really came from moonboarding. I can still whip out the slab technique when needed. To get to the level of slab climbing I was back in the day, it would probably take me like a couple of weeks to slide back into that doing hard slab. But, off the couch, I can climb like pretty comfortably hard slab in the gym, at least when they set it. But yeah, man, I think my fight is just like crazy from the moonboard and then from climbing outside, like I can hang on. And the one thing that you get from outdoor climbing for me that I didn't get from competitions is when you're in a competition, you got 5 minutes to send the boulder and then it's like, see you later, like never again. Your only limiting factor outside is you. You're not worried about timing out. Obviously we got like weather and like temps and all that stuff, but you can work a boulder forever essentially. And even on like the day you're trying it, right? You don't have 5 minutes to try it. You can like be gassing out and still try and go for the send because you're not worried that, oh, I've got 3 more boulders to climb after this. Is it worth like losing a layer of skin on?
Do you find it hard to have goals and to pursue them with vigor when they're more self-directed versus like, this is the comp calendar. I'm going to go here in 2 weeks. And then, you know what I mean? It kind of like forces your training, it's a forcing function versus like, well, I can do it however I want.
Yeah. I think what happens is when I get psyched on a boulder, I get psyched on a boulder. And the weird times for me are right after I send something hard that I've been working. It's like I'll have this period of like, you know, sometimes I'll know like what I'm going to get on next. I've seen a boulder that's on the back burner because I'm projecting something, but other times I'm kind of like floating around figuring out what's next. So I feel really unproductive right after I send a project, which is funny. But then once I find what I'm going to sink my teeth into next, I'm like gung ho. I know what I'm doing. I've got a plan, and really the plan is to just do the boulder or try to boulder until I send it. You know, I try and adjust my training accordingly to the best of my abilities, but I don't know. It's kind of fun to just really have that fire behind you for a boulder that you're psyched on.
You are known for training really, really hard. I mean, you even built walls in your spot to train, you know, your weaknesses. What does your general training look like now compared to when you were competing?
I'm trying to think what my training would have been like when I like had the home wall. I'd probably do 2 days a week on my home wall and then 2 days in the gym. So my home wall days would have been working on, you know, the more technical competition boulders, generally more projecting. I would have people come in and set, and I would try and run them like an on-site round, basically. And then there'd, of course, always be stuff that I couldn't do. So that turned into projecting or stuff I ended up tweaking to make harder so I could project it or, you know, just make it a little bit of a different boulder. But that was the main focus in there. And then the other 2 days in the gym, I would usually run volume and power endurance. So like 4x5s. And then my favorite volume workout is to just do 40 boulders. It's kind of boring. 40 boulders is a lot of boulders to do. But by the end, you're just kind of like trucking yourself along. You're like, all right, only 10 more. Like that's not that many. And then I would strength train probably like 3 days a week. And I would campus and hangboard 2 to 3 days a week.
40 boulders is a lot. It's actually a lot.
Yeah, it really can be, you know?
Yeah, the reason why I say that is because I would never have kept track of my boulders, but now with the boards and the apps, like I often am like, oh, how many boulders did I do today? And like, honestly, 20 boulders on the MoonBoard it's like a good amount for a day, even including warm up and everything.
Yeah, it's quite the feat, honestly. When the 2024 first got put up at the gym, which was in March of this year, there were a couple sessions where I would have like done my normal climbing session and then finally the board freed up because everyone was like so excited on it. And me and one of my friends would just one session, or not even one session, a couple sessions, we ended up doing 25 like B7s and 8s. And thinking about that now, I'm like, that was so heinous after we'd climbed like a full session. I just remember like slogging my way up the board on those. But I felt strong after, you know?
So as you transitioned into board climbing, like any tips for someone that finds boards and maybe just help them not get wrecked or hurt? Because it sounds like, you know, you discovered it in 2018. Maybe you were doing more technical climbing. I'm sure you were strong and had strong fingers, but it's a different beast, you know?
It really is. So, I mean, for me, I've mainly been a moonboarder my entire life, right? Like, God, I've climbed on like a tension board and a kilter board under 5 times. So this is all like very much so moonboard specific advice. But I would say if you're starting out, warm up pre getting on the board. So like get yourself fully warmed up. And then there's nothing wrong with just starting and getting volume. Like even for me, granted, I was starting on the board just because at the time I had strong enough fingers and everything that like a V4 on the moonboard was like very much okay for me to warm up on. But I was just like, all right, I got to knock out all the benchmark V4s and V5s and just keep climbing those. So that's kind of the best way to start, is to just get that like lower grade volume in. And the other thing I tell people too, and I want to be clear because people are like, oh yeah, is this like actually ascend or not? It's not. But if you want to get into board climbing, it feels a little too hard for you, just use any feat. Like that's a really good way to get into it. You know, you can climb whatever boulder, any feat, take a little bit of stress off yourself. You know, you don't have to do everything perfect to get into board climbing. And the other thing is, it's just going to be hard and know it. So it's okay. You know, new things are hard. It'll get better after a couple of weeks and you'll feel way more comfortable.
I like how when you talked about the lower grades, you're like, quote unquote, like the easier volume grades. Cause sometimes, yeah, I don't know, the easy ones in there. And this is coming from someone who has climbed a lot of those benchmarks. I find that in some ways, when you have strong enough fingers for, I don't know, whatever grade, like V8 or something, in some ways the V4s feel just like the V8s, but the holds are smaller. Like it's still big moves. It's still jumpy. It's still high tension, reachy. And I just always find that interesting about the MoonBoard, where once you do get adjusted to it, like let's say you are a V8 climber, you might struggle with the V4s, but you might find that then once you get used to that style, you'll be doing V8s.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There's something too about knowing like the timing and the spacing of the holds too, and just what the holds feel like. You know, it gets, even for me, when the 2024 came in the gym, it took me a couple sessions to know like what every hold felt like and to like have it cataloged, you know, and you could sit and inspect every hold and get on a ladder and feel them all, but you really just need to like climb on all of them and grab them. And that's how your brain really like logs what's going on.
You said that, you know, the MoonBoard is kind of, actually, I don't know if you said this. I'm going to say it. The MoonBoard is burly and powerful, and that's both the best part of it and also the hardest part of it. And you said that maybe you weren't like typically the physically strongest, like that wasn't your superpower. So how do you approach these climbs that are kind of like known to be super burly and physical?
You know, you just figure it out, but there are ways to exploit the board. You know, there's like some holds I can match that other people probably could match because they've just got bigger fingers, or they've never had to match holds because they're not strong enough to just like yard through them right away. So it's quite a bit of just like, all right, I guess I'm getting stronger now because I'm moonboarding all the time. And then also, you know, exploiting your current strengths, which is like, all right, what could I do to make this move a little bit easier? Do we have options? And sometimes the option is literally just like do it as it is, you know, and, it's funny because regardless on the MoonBoard or like outside or in the gym, I always have this crux where I'm like, is the move hard or am I just doing it wrong? And sometimes it's really hard to know.
Yeah, say more on that. How do you decide?
Oh, it just like you figure it out eventually, I guess. I literally had a problem in the gym this week where I was like, is this move just impossible or am I just doing it wrong? And guess what? I was doing it wrong. Like someone came over and did it. It was just like they moved their foot up higher on a hold, and it was still hard, but it was like way more doable. So the ways to mitigate that, sometimes it's just time. Other times it's like getting beta from other people. Like, does anyone else know how to do this move? Do we have any ideas? But yeah, eventually like you'll either figure out how to do it and it's just a hard move, or someone's going to drop some beta in your lap, or you figure it out and you're like, man, 30 burns ago, I could have done this if I knew that or thought about that.
That can be frustrating, although it's just training. It's just good for you.
For sure.
One of the things about the MoonBoard that always stands out to me is that no matter what, there is some crazy try hard element. Like you stick it, you swing out, and like a lot of times that is the move and it feels heinous. And the beta is you just gotta hold that swing. Like I know it's a weird 3 fingers spraggle crimp and your feet are going to cut, but like that's kind of the answer. And that's helpful for outdoors. I feel like that's one of the reasons why it transitions is sometimes like it's not comfortable and that's the beta.
Yeah. You have to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. And I mean, for me, I love it when a boulder flows and feels right, but man, there are just some boulders where you just feel like trash on every move, or like it's just weird and you just figure out how to execute. And yeah, sometimes that's just what it is.
So you're pretty dynamic when I see you on the MoonBoard. That's typically the way most people do the boulders, but sometimes that is the more powerful way. Like, do you trend towards more dynamic? I guess you're pretty tall. You've got long arms too. So maybe that's why you head there. But, how do you decide when to like jump for things versus maybe like do a really high foot that's, maybe a little more static?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, about my height, a lot of people think I'm like 5'10" or 5'11". I'm 5'7", so I'm probably on the taller end for a female climber, but as far as climbing in general, like barely average size. Yeah, I don't know. I just always try and do moves on the board in what I think is the easiest way possible and what feels right. So there's not always a lot of thinking that goes on. And that's in a lot of my climbing, which, makes me sound like I'm really just winging it. But it's really weird for me to get on a move where I have to think like, all right, I need to like tuck this elbow in, or I need to like get my pinky on and fully crimp it. That's definitely an oddity for me. It's mainly just like I instinctually know how to execute moves and I make changes based on how I feel, or if, like I said, the hardest changes are where when I really have to get to the move and like run through it in my brain. That just feels like so bizarre to me.
I feel like that's not what people want to hear. They want to like think that everyone's super analytical, but I feel like when you have the depth of climbing that you've had of like decades, there is a side of just intuiting. And I got to tell you, it feels so good when things go right. It's still problem solving. When things don't go well, you have to be like, is this move just hard or am I doing it wrong? But boy, do I love that feeling of just trusting your body and instincts.
Yeah. And really nothing feels better when you just kind of nail it on the first burn, whether you send or don't send, but you just feel like you get it. Like there's nothing worse when you're just kind of like derping around with a boulder and you're like, man, I don't know how this is happening at all.
Quick break while I tell you about today's sponsor. You. That's right, you. Thank you to all the patrons who help make this show possible. Join them so you can get episodes early before anyone else, and those episodes are ad-free. As a patron, you also get to submit questions for upcoming guests. The answers to those questions are only available to patrons. Follow the link in the show notes to join now. You also get access to a private Discord where you'll find me and other people who want to go from good to great. Okay, back to the pod. So you've sent some really hard benchmarks, and I'm curious if that means that you have chugged your way through all the lower grades. Like, were you very diligent about like, I am going to do all the V4s, or do you have outliers in the quote unquote easy grades, even though you've sent much harder?
Yeah, so I have outliers. I think so. On 2016, new benchmarks have dropped since I've been on the board because it's been a couple months. But at one point, I had everything V7 and under done, and then I climbed up through V11 on that board. 2024, I think I have everything V7 and under, and then I need to got 8s to 11s that I've like climbed in the range but haven't hit all the benchmarks. And then actually on the 2025, I have a standing V5 benchmark project. So that's every time I get on, I'm like, today's going to be the day I send it and clean sweep the V5s on the mini, and it just hasn't happened yet. So yeah, I mean, I try and knock everything out in the lower grades, but at the end of the day, it's like sometimes you just don't want to be stuck on a certain grade and want to get stuff at the higher grades done too.
So what does that make you think about grading and the moon boards? And, you've had a lot of experience in all the different sets too. Just what's your take on, these quote unquote easier grades and doing V11, but then not being able to do V5 on a different set?
I mean, stylistically, things can just be so different. And I feel like I've climbed so much at this point, and especially with climbing outside a lot, sometimes you'll get on a boulder and whatever grade it is, and it will just feel so hard for the grade. And then you do it and you're like, it is that grade. Like, despite it taking me way longer to send this than it would like any other V8 on the planet, it is V8, which just goes to show you like how much nuance there is in climbing just amongst the boulders and then amongst like personal strengths and weaknesses too.
I love that. I love what you said there, because I feel like it's so tempting to say like, this is hard or this is not the grade, but sometimes you'll do a boulder and be like, but it is V8. It just had my number. And having that honesty and also just that deep understanding of climbing is, well, you have that deep understanding of climbing.
Yep.
Okay. I got to ask a little bit about the Mini MoonBoard, and here's why. Let me just set this up. So I've never seen a Mini MoonBoard, Sierra. I've seen pictures. And we did a board talk podcast, my recurring podcast on boards. And we were talking about the MoonBoard, and a lot of people came on and said, hey, Mini MoonBoard. And I was like, I do people climb on these? Like, I didn't even know there was a community there. And you got tagged a few times, and they said, Sierra should know. And so tell me about, when did you decide to get a Mini MoonBoard? Like, why? And just what's it like compared to the other boards?
Yeah. So my My ceiling height is, I think it's 8 feet and a third foot. And I think the full size board means 9 and a third foot. So I'm whatever the measurements are. I know I'm a foot short. So one day I was like thinking about this. I was like, can I fit my full size board in here? And I was walking around, measured my ceilings, and I was like, well, I'd have to cut into the ceiling to put it. And I have upstairs neighbors and, like an HOA and that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that's going to go over like super well when they find out about this thing. So, it canned that idea, which was fine. I don't even know if there's enough space. Like, I don't know if I'd be like butting up against their flooring essentially, but I was like, darn, oh well. And then I'm sponsored by Moon, and I don't know, probably like a couple months later, I was just like emailing them about like whatever. And I think they were asking if I'd gotten on the 2024 set or something. And somehow I mentioned like, nah, like I haven't or whatever. And I said, I've kind of like thought about getting a mini for my condo though. And they're like, well, do you have space? Like, we'll just obviously send it to you. And I was like, yeah, I've got space. And, the mini came into play in January of this year. It's the 2025 set. It's just been awesome. It stands at like a little over 6 feet tall, and I'm trying to think, it's 8 feet wide. I would probably need to double check these measurements. Obviously it fits in the space, and it's just been an awesome training tool. It's the hardest graded board of all the moon boards I've been on, in my opinion. And, the mini's just something else. Like, you do a lot of lateral movement on it. A V5 that takes place in like 2 to 3 moves, or like an 8, a 9, a 10, whatever, like every move is just packed with so much punch. And the mini community is really cool because, more people are getting them, but it's also smaller than the board community at large because, gyms are generally going to get a full size board because they've probably got the ceiling height for it, right? And so everyone's just like super psyched, very into the boulders, all freakishly strong. And that was my first thing. There's like a mini Discord community that I got added to. And after my first session on the board, I was like, you guys are a bunch of freaks. Like, this thing is so hard.
I'm sure they will love to hear that it's the most sandbag. I feel like there's something about these little communities that arise of like, yeah, like we're tough. Like these boulders are heinous. So I'm sure they'll appreciate hearing that.
Oh, it's crazy. There's like, anyone who's got the 2025 mini is going to know what I'm talking about, but J12 is this like famously bad pinch, and it's a finishing hold. I have yet to complete a single boulder where that is the only finishing hold. Like, I need to like get a fan on that thing and like wait for a cold winter day. I think like I need conditions to send on that hold. It's a hard board.
So does it still have a vertical foot kick panel? Like, is it kind of still like that?
Yeah. So it's got the kicker is just one row instead of two. And then it's essentially like the 40-degree angle part. It's 2 panels instead of 3 panels. So I think the full size ends on like, 18, row 18, and then the mini adds on row 12.
Okay, so that must mean that there's a lot of stretched out tension because you're probably able to keep your feet on that kick panel quite a bit. So you're doing, like you said, a lot of lateral moves. So you must get really stretched out and then have to cut feet or do a hard walk up.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. And I don't know, it's just something about like that shortness of it compared to a full size, just how like tensiony it can be. Even when like the kicker's off, even when it's like a no kickboard or whatever, you're still just like stretched to the gills, or like you're finishing like sideways in this like extreme gas stone. It's interesting. I was like so psyched for the mini, and it has just hit like such a different area than the full size hits in my body, which is really cool.
Gosh, I gotta tell you, I was thinking to myself, I would never want something that's like that small, or like it wouldn't be that great. But then I was thinking to myself, like, I could just say that about the MoonBoard compared to a commercial set, but like,
yeah,
I found deep joy and love in just that little 8-foot wide panel up to, maybe a little taller, but it's not that different. Like the fact I find joy in that makes me think like, like maybe if I didn't have that tall garage, I would enjoy it, because I don't know, it just never crossed my mind. But then it's cool to hear that, it's different and you enjoy it for it being different.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think like if anyone wants to get the mini and has the space, I 100% think it's a good idea. Like, I don't think you're going to be disappointed, other than, how hard the boulders are, but it's like, welcome to moonboarding. Everything's hard.
Yeah. What holds are there? So the 2025, is it still the blues and the woods?
Blues, woods, and yellows.
Okay, they kept yellows on there. Heinous.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite hold set out of all of these different ones that you've climbed on?
Probably, I mean, I like the classic yellows. I also really like the blacks on like 2016.
I feel like I'm the only one who likes the wood holds. I like that they kind of almost have texture on. People are like, no, that's why they're not good wood holds, because they have texture and they shouldn't have texture. I was like, no, I like those. Like, I think they're really fun.
I know I like the wood holds too. They've got some pretty interesting shapes in them as well. Just between like 2024 and the full and then 2025 mini, like I get a fair amount of exposure to the wood, and yeah, they've got some good holds on there.
I think it's nice, especially for me, the 2019 set is maybe one of the ones I know the best. I find it nice to have a mix of, I feel like the woods are more ergonomic, and then you do have those. I find the yellow holds not so ergonomic, and I like that. Like, I'm not complaining. It's just nice to kind of have a wide swath of different holds, and yeah, I love it all. I guess I love it all. Yeah.
I know, you can't go wrong. That's the thing.
Well, yeah. Anything else we should say about the MoonBoard Mini? I'm trying to think. I just want to make sure that community gets their dose, because there wasn't one out there for me to try, and so I'm just trying to think if there's any other MoonBoard Mini things that I don't know as a full size moonboarder.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I haven't mentioned. I mean, other than I just love it, and I think that it's awesome. And if anyone is interested in building a mini, you can ask me questions. You can basically ask anyone in the mini community. I'm not trying to volunteer their time, but everyone was really helpful when I was going to build my mini on like anything to look out for and like yada yada. And if this helps anyone, we actually built mine. I just say it's basically like an A-frame board. So it's like its own like singular piece of furniture essentially that I can move around, which is nice. I think I probably would have been okay to like bolt it to the wall here, but since I do live in a condo, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try and stay out of the building structure. So, you can also just see my mini MoonBoard like pretty clearly in the window for everyone around. So I didn't want anyone to say anything about it.
What about like your feet cutting and dealing with dabbing, and like, what about that issue? Or are the holds so small that like feet cutting is not something you do as much?
No, I mean, you definitely feet cut, and it's kind of like the same stuff you do outdoors. Like you like can sub a thinner pad in, you can move the pad back a little bit. My floor is a hard tile, so I never want to take like a back flop on it with a blubber. But if there's a move where I'm just like really having a hard time not, kicking the ground, I can always like slide out the standard size pad and like put the blubber down and just give myself some clearance. But also just makes me better at tucking your feet if that's the other thing. Like I rarely slide the blubber in. I mainly just am like, all right, dude, get those feet up like way higher than you think.
I totally do that outdoors too, where I'm like, I'm going to dab here. I'm going to go for blubber, or sometimes nothing and just risk it. And yeah, I mean, that's sometimes part of the moves.
Tactics are so funny. It's like many a boulder have had a pad that's just getting in the way, and I'll put a puffy jacket down instead to, at least kind of block the sharp rock I'm trying to avoid.
I totally do that. I often do that when I'm solo and I don't have enough pads. I'm like, okay, on the off chance I wing off over here, this sharp rock that's way over here, I'm putting my puffy, and luckily never needed that. But I was talking to an OG, this guy, Greg Lowe, and he was telling me that they would do that, but then be embarrassed about, like, they didn't have pads, and they were like, this is inappropriate, like to even move this sharp rock. And I just thought that was like a funny throwback to where you weren't even allowed to protect yourself.
I know, they're like, what, the death rock, it's gotta stay. It doesn't count unless you're also like at risk of dying if you fall.
All right. You've had your falls. You've hurt your back. You can do it now, Sarah. I'll let Greg know.
Yeah.
Okay. So all this training, good for the outdoors, when did you find the outdoors? I know you talked about that V10, but how long did you go without climbing outdoors when you were focused on comps?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like I never climbed outside, but between 2002 to like late 2022, more or less like didn't climb outside very much. And then like starting in 2023, I started climbing outside every weekend.
I got to tell you, climbing outdoors kind of sucks. Like, it's sharp. You have to carry stuff. You have to hike. I love outdoors, but like, I remember even as a kid, I was like, why are we doing this, you guys? Like, we could just go to the gym. It's great. They have candy bars we could buy and stuff too. So yeah, spending 20 years not focusing as much, it must have been a big change for you.
I think I was just so excited. And I will say the other thing and I learned this like much sooner than 2023, but as a kid, when I'd go climbing outside, it's always with like an older group of climbers who have like their projects they're going to get on and they're like much bigger than you and much stronger than you. So at least in my case, we were always going to boulders that I just didn't have a chance on, which is like, there's nothing wrong with, trying something out of your ability level. But I think for anyone who climbs outside, it's one thing to say like, if someone's jumping on your trip and you're like, hey man, we're going to my, V10 project today. And like, there's not really anything besides this V10 around, just know what you're getting yourself into. It's one thing to tag along on one of those days, but if like you want to go outside and have an enjoyable experience, it's good to get on things you can do, especially as you're first climbing outside that are like within your ability level. Cause otherwise you're just like knocking off the ground the whole day. So I think that's like something when I go outside with people and we're just having like a fun day, I try and be really cognizant if I'm like the person who knows the area the best, like what's an area we can go to or like we can all have a fun time climbing. And I think that really helps with the psych. But as far as the general suffer factor with like hiking and all that, long story short, I like don't hike too much. I've been lucky to get a lot of roadside boulders. I'll do some more aggressive approaches, but I also do have a high tolerance for suffering, just showing up and trying hard at this point. And yeah, sometimes the walk to get there is part of the suffer.
I mean, I'm half kidding because it does kind of suck, but that is kind of like part of the fun. And it's like a whole different ball game. There's all these other factors and tactics. And, as someone who was really experienced and successful in climbing, what were some of the things that jumped out at you when you first started going outside that were like, oh, that's different. Like, I got to figure that out.
Shoot, I'm trying to think what seemed like so different. I mean, the way the weather can change throughout the day, like you have days where you show up and you're like cruising your butt off in the morning and you've got all these layers. And then by like midday, end of day, now you've got like a bag stuffed full of all your layers and you're like sweating because the sun came out. So it's just kind of like ever changing conditions, the conditions that change amongst the area. Like, at Oak Flat where I climb a lot, I'm pretty good now. I can look at the weather and be like, okay, this like sub area will be okay. This area will be hot. Just figuring out that stuff. And then also just how much I'd overpack at the beginning. I bring like so many snacks in my lunch with me, which is great. But now I just want my bag to be light. So I'm like pretty lean operation on the food front. Like I never go hungry when I climb outside for sure. But I'm like, I don't know if I need to bring like a full like big lunch. Like we could probably get off lighter on this. And just like how much water I'd bring out during the day too, which, I still bring water, but I like really think about it. I'm like, okay, like I'll leave some extra bottles in the car that I can run back to reasonably and grab if I run out, but I'm not bringing like a full filled gallon of water with me because it's like just so heavy to carry that around all day.
Yeah, gallon's a lot. I still was giving you crap last time we talked because I saw the video Pretty Strong by Mad Rock of you doing a V12. I was like, Sierra, you're in the direct sun. Like you probably would have done it quicker if it wasn't in the direct sun. And I was like, I guess there's still tactics. I mean, I like that Psych though. I don't want to give you crap about you sent. So who cares? But I just wanted to make fun of you for that.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, sometimes you just show up and the sun's in a different spot than you think it's going to be and you just have to roll with it. But yeah, actually two of the 12s that are like in that video, there's Captain Hook and then there's the Averager. So before we shot that video with Mad Rock, I had already sent Captain Hook and I sent it on my third or fourth session, I think. And basically we just got a late start that day going out to it. And I got there and like, the second you touch the rock and you're like, oh no, like conditions are not it. But I just like still eked out the send and I was like psyched on it. And then the second one, the Averager, the video of me sending it, that is actually from like iPhone footage. That's like the day I sent. And believe it or not, it does look like it's pretty bright out, but conditions were like decent that day, like very comfortable.
So you're in Arizona, Oak Flats. You were talking about Arizona. I think I've actually been there, but just like 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, actually, embarrassingly, for the shout out Phoenix bouldering contest. Very, very old school. And yeah, just tell me more about that area. And like, honestly, when I think of Arizona, I think of bouldering. I think of maybe pre-straw, but clearly there's a lot of hard boulder problems for you and you're psyched there. So just tell me more about that area.
Yeah, so Oak Flat's really cool. It's about an hour east of Phoenix, and it's just an area that's got a ton of bouldering, but it's a really interesting story because they had the Phoenix Bouldering Contest there for about 20 years, which was the largest outdoor bouldering contest, I think, in the world. I want to say like 3,000 people were attending and competing, which is just like absurd. And especially for how small the town is next to it, Superior. And that's like how small it is in, 2025. Like it's a small town. And I just cannot imagine like the flood of people that were in there and just like filling it up. But the Phoenix Bouldering Contest stopped in 2004. That was the final year. And it's like the area kind of died since then. It's also been under threat for copper mining. So a lot of people, number one, like don't even think it's open, or they just think it's already been mined. But I mean, it's there. There are boulders. It can be a little bit hard to get information about the climbing there. So like me and Zach Levy are always trying to update Mountain Project, add pictures and directions and just information on like, where to start the boulder, beta videos if we have any. And yeah, it's just a cool area with like a lot of established climbs that are being rediscovered, and then room for a bunch more climbing as well.
Yeah, I do remember us all descending on that poor tiny little town. I was maybe back in like 95, and that was the total dirtbag era of climbing too, and just hacky sacks, unbathed masses of boulders. They're probably just like, what are these guys doing? Like, what is going on out there? But that's cool to hear that probably some of those climbs that got established, because I remember there'd be projects during the comp. It'd be like, if you send this, you get X amount of points. And I don't know, I remember Sharma putting up stuff back then, and that's cool to hear that that hasn't been lost to history. And yeah, I guess now that you have this newfound focus on the outdoors, like what's your future look like? Are you really psyched on just developing this area, kind of putting your mark on your local crag, or like, yeah, what's the future look like for you?
I feel like I just kind of go wherever the Psych takes me during the season. And usually what happens is I pick a boulder I want to work on. I keep working it until I get it done. And then I, figure out what the next boulder is, be it at Oak Flat or somewhere else. For Oak Flat, my big project last season was the Averager. And basically it was an undone boulder, right? It was a project, and I started working it. And I couldn't do the first move for like months. I could do the rest of it, but the first move is just like nails. Maffolds came out for a Madarock trip to Oak Flat, and I was like, dude, you should try it, and Matt FA'd it. No surprise there. Super strong guy. And then I sent it, I think like a month later, I finally like did the boulder. But yeah, other than that, I really just like roll with whatever I'm psyched with. That one I had tried the prior season, so my eyes were kind of already on it, and it felt so impossible. And I think I like boulders that feel impossible. But it's always really weird once you send them, because a lot of times ascend just feels like pretty chill, and you're like, God, V12 feels like not V12. Like, am I crazy, or did I just get so good at it? So
yeah. So what changed over months of getting shut down?
I just figured it out. I think it was just like I was probably eking a little bit closer. And I think what made the difference is the start holds are really bad on the Averager. And you've got like a pretty good foot, but it's pretty far away from me. Like, I don't think someone who's a hair shorter than me would reach it. I think I'm kind of like the lowest end of the height spectrum that can reach it comfortably. And it was just like hard to like pull up and establish without like immediately pitching off. Like, for a while when I was trying to move, I think it was almost in like questionable territory of like, did you like really establish? Or are you like kind of jumping off the ground? Like, that's just like how slight it was. And then all of a sudden one day I could just like pull into the holds a little better, and I was able to snug my left foot under the wall. And something about it positionally just put me in like a better position to not already be like falling off the boulder essentially. And one of my last sessions on it, like I got like way more within range than I had been for like all of my sessions prior. And I think my like last good burn of the day, I hit the hold but didn't like sink it. But I was like, okay, like I can like get to the hold. And then yeah, I rested a few days, came back, and I think I fired it on my like third or fourth burn that day. And then I was like, okay, let's go to lunch. Like, I sent the project, we can go home now.
It's really interesting that you can go from this whole time of climbing for decades where you were just like, okay, here's 5 minutes and you'll never see this boulder again, to then saying, I'm here for months. I haven't even done this one move. And knowing that it is possible, or having that belief and that dedication, like those are literally like the most opposite ends of the spectrum you can do in climbing.
I know it's been like a really bizarre switch, but it's been fun. I think it's funny. I'll still get stressed out climbing outside because I put a lot of pressure on like wanting to send boulders. And half the time I'm just so excited to send them too. And sometimes the excitement honestly comes from the fact that I'm like ready to work something else. I'm like, I love that I've tried this like a million times, but I'm ready to try something else too. But then I can just also like chill out and keep trying. And like, that's a zone I never really like had in competitions, is where you're like, all right, I'm just here to like try it and climb it. And I don't know. I think this is kind of off topic, but on topic. I was thinking about this the other day, like a lot of other things you do in life, like, right, if you go to get a massage or something, like something relaxing, like your peak of the experience is while it's happening, right? You're like, oh, I'm relaxed. I'm getting massaged. How nice. In climbing, your peak is when it's over, you know? So I've really been trying to focus on when I'm actually like climbing, just like enjoy the climb. Like, the goal is to send it, but it's like, hey man, just like enjoy your time on the wall like you would with like any other like fun thing you're psyched on. The best part of the dessert's while you're eating it, not at the end.
That's good, Sierra. Did you feel that way when you were in the competition space, or is this something that you've tried to embrace now?
I mean, I think in the competition space, I was very much so like looking forward towards the end. Yeah, that's like that, right? That's when you find out how you do, like, and I feel like I thought that a lot for outdoor climbing too. And I mean, I still do to a degree, right? I want to send, but the other day I was just like, I should just like enjoy like actually climbing on the climbs too, like, yeah, I think that's something that you can't lose when you're so goal oriented with everything you're doing in climbing.
I'm just going to let that stand. That was really, really good. I'm curious how you pick your next boulders. Like, what gets you psyched on boulders? Is it the aesthetics? Is it the moves? Is it that it's never been done? Just what draws you to specific climbs?
I feel like it's a combination of all the above. Something about it just clicks. Like the Averager, which was like the last big one I projected. I like the aesthetics. I like that it had never been done. I like that it seems hard. The big boulder I did before that was this V12 called Antimatter at Pre-Straw. And Antimatter, I'd never really thought about one way or the other, not for any reason, but I ended up at that roof one day, and one of my friends was like, oh yeah, let's get on flat black. And he was like, oh yeah, this is like Antimatter starts here and like that's out right. And I just like gave it a few burns and I was like, I like this boulder, and like it links into the end of flat black, which I didn't have like too hard of a time with. So I was like, okay, let's make this the one. Like, I don't know, it just like bites me somehow, like these boulders. And it's kind of like once I get to them and like give them a rip, I can decide if I'm into it or not. Cause I had like 2 or 3 boulders that I saw like videos of, went to and was like, tried it and was like, I don't know, like, feel like I'm going to like break my finger on this move. I don't feel like I've got the psych for this that I could have. So yeah, it's really just getting on it, trying it and deciding if I like it or not.
Pre-straw looks a lot different than oak flat. Can you tell me more about the style of pre-straw? It's someplace that I've always seen and looks cool. I like roof climbing. Maybe that sets it up. Yeah. Tell me more about roof climbing and pre-straw.
Yeah. I mean, roof climbing's super cool. I have done an okay amount of climbing at Pre-Straw, but I'm certainly not as experienced as some of my other friends in town, and especially the people who live in Flagstaff. But Pre-Straw is a lot of knowing like how to hit the pockets, how to dangle on them, like the best way to execute the beta. And there are roofs there where I feel like you truly need a lot of time on your hands to figure out the climb, or someone from Flagstaff or who knows the boulder pointing out all the holds in beta to you to cut down, on your time on the boulder by like 90%, because it's just so tricky to like dial in that beta that gets figured out over the years. There is stuff that's like a little bit more straightforward. The Egyptian's a little bit more straightforward, like Antimatter is a little bit more straightforward, but yeah, it's an area that you very much stylistically need to adapt to. And for the most part, even like a really strong climber that comes in, they're going to need to put in some work on the more complex boulders, like anything in like Mars roof. Sometimes you can get away with just like yarding your way through, but a lot of the stuff, even if you comfortably flash V10, right? Like a lot of these people do, it would just be so hard to comfortably flash any of that stuff. Like you would just really be making it much harder than it is.
So is that because it's really three-dimensional? Like, is it like because the holds are maybe not so in cut and juggy that like you have to spin your body around so that you're getting opposition? Like it looks like there's a lot of foot movement on those.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of foot movement and body position. And then they also like build up its like sidewall skin. It's really weird. You almost like leave like feeling like the sides of your fingers are bruised sometimes when you're getting on the roofs a bunch. And that'll build it pretty quickly. But yeah, it's just like this minute beta where it's like you can make a move, 40 to 50% harder without that minute beta. And like you make every move out of the 13 moves 40 to 50% harder. Like you've really like not done it the best way possible.
Well, yeah, it's cool hearing about Arizona. There's climbing all over. And I love that there's people like you who are just developing your area, like, unearthing kind of forgotten gems, putting out the beta, updating Mountain Project. Like someone's got to do it. And you're kind of like setting a path for all the people that come after you to have test pieces and stuff that they can try themselves on. And so I love that commitment to your local area.
Yeah. And it's been really satisfying on my end too. Like a lot of the stuff I'm adding, it's like I haven't FA'd it, right? It's just like I found this boulder on this map from a million years ago and, did it, gave it a name, gave it a grade, whether it's easy or hard. And, like I've been out there where people are like, oh yeah, like I'm looking for nobody's hero. And it's like a V2 and it's like a fine boulder, but it's certainly like not spectacular. And I'm like, oh yeah, I added that one a couple months ago, and just seeing people out there like hitting on stuff and trying stuff is really fun. Or when people tell me like my beta videos help, that makes me feel really good. Cause the other thing I do is obviously anything hard I'm climbing, I'll like post a video of on YouTube, but I do it for basically anything I get on at the crag. Cause I think everyone can use a beta video if they want it, right? Regardless of what grade they climb. So, for some people, D1, that could be like their project and they need the beta on it. And for other people, the grade might be higher, but still equally useful and appreciated.
In today's world, Sierra, it doesn't even count unless you video it. I feel like that's just the MO now. So you put videos out of all of your climbs that you do on your YouTube? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What about for the moonboard?
Well, I only do benchmarks or if there's like a really cool boulder I get on. So not every single one. And I'm like so backlogged on the benchmarks I need to upload between the boards. Like I've got like 300 videos just sitting and I still keep like putting more on my phone. And I'm like, after every session, I'm like, okay, you're going to upload the 10 boulders, like the 10 new benchmarks you did today. And then I like upload 2 of them and like go eat dinner. And then the next day I'm like, okay, I'm going to upload the 5 I did today and the 8 I did the other day. And it just, it'll get done eventually. Just piling up right now.
I have so many 2016 benchmarks that I videoed that I never put up. I did all for 2019. I've done a couple on the 2024, but there's too many. And it's, sometimes you look and there's like, 50 other people who have done a beta video. And maybe if you have something unique to offer, like your beta is different, maybe, I don't know, just something that like someone else from the community might be like appreciative where I'm like, I did it just like everyone did it. Here it is, it just kind of adds to the mess rather than something special.
No, I know what you're saying. I will say for me though, like when I'm looking for beta videos, if Jesse Wentz or Dana Rader has a video, I'm like, those are the first 2 videos I'm going to look at because you know what? I love a good beta video, but also sometimes like the beta men do on the moonboard. Sometimes the women have beta more suited to me. So I'm always like, okay, let's see like how they did it. And then I'll watch a couple more and, figure out like what's going on here.
Those 2 women are extremely strong. I feel like those are good call outs. Big fan of both of them. I just shouted out Dana's V9 she set on 2024. I'm going to blank on the name. It was so good though. I took the time to shout out on the last podcast I did because she's great. Her husband's great too. What do you typically see done differently by women on the moonboard versus men?
It's just going to be like, I know Jessie is much shorter than me if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know how tall Dana is, but just beta that's not going to be like super, super extended. Cause that's the other thing is sometimes I'll look at a beta video and you can just tell this guy is like 6'2". Like I'm like your arms and legs are so long, and yeah, sometimes they just have smarter beta or a different way to like a different sequence or, doing like a heel hook somewhere I might not have thought of. And yeah, it's been really helpful. Both of them have gotten me up multiple boulders on the moon board. Like nothing's better than when I like put something hard up and I'm like, okay, I need a beta video. And then like, yeah, Jesse or Dana has a video. I'm like, yes, like jackpot.
I can't remember if it was Jesse. It might have been someone else, but they like crimped the top. There's like this classic vertical wood pinch, and you can kind of crimp the top. I saw one of the women like fully use that as the hold on top, and it didn't work for me for that climb, but then it was like this new unlock for me where I was like, oh, I could just crimp the top of that. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I want to say that is Jesse, but I'm not positive. But yeah, it's fun. That stuff, it can just like translate to other boulders,
The thing that's interesting about the moonboard that I found is that there's often these two very distinct ways. There's a really extended way to do it, which I'm not crazy tall, but I like climbing stretched out. And then there's like the hand foot match way. I feel like it's either like really extended or really bunchy. And really you should try both ways often. You should be like, can I make this reach? If not, can I do the heinous, like super small box beta?
I know it is funny how sometimes it evens out like that. You're like, okay, moves either going to be real stretched out or real close together. Yeah. Even to this day, I'm just impressed at like some of the moves people, including myself, can execute in just kind of weird positions. But I don't know, just I feel like it teaches you to be adaptable. You're like, this like foot seems kind of weird and high. And then you just like go for it. You're like, oh, but it worked,
So when you do those kind of weird positions, I don't know if it's like a board specific thing. I feel like it's often a hard climbing thing is that you have to be accepting of it not feeling like perfect and balanced. It's not like, oh, I have two perfectly opposing feet. Like, when do you think it's okay to feel awkward and when do you hunt for like a more normal type of beta? I mean, because this could be outdoors as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about a move feeling awkward like the first 5 times you do it. And then once you get it positionally, it just feels like normal. So I think the goal is always comfort, but there will be moves every once in a while where you're like, I've, done this move 100 times because I'm working this boulder. And this one move just always feels strange to me. And I think like much of climbing, it's just like rolling with how it's going and trying your best.
All right. I love the board talk. I have too much fun with it. I love seeing this arc of your career. I guess when I was paying attention to all your comp success, I just didn't think that, 10 years later, I'd be talking to you about moonboarding on a podcast. And so I've really enjoyed it. It made me think of that picture you showed me of you're up there on the podium and then there's just a stacked field of women and all of them have gone on to like a different discipline, whether it was comp climbing and like, it seems like your niche has somehow been to just crush moonboards. And I don't know. I think that's really fun. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's really cool in general to see where everyone takes their climbing, because I feel like in my head, I was like, I'm just going to compete all the time forever. And I couldn't imagine anything else. And then like a time comes where just things change and you get to have this whole like new exciting side of climbing, at least for me personally,
Yeah. Okay, Sierra, here's my classic question that I ask everyone. And that's, how do you go from good to great?
Yeah, this is going to be the most simple answer, but you just got to suck it up and do it. You got to suck it up and show up at the gym. You got to work hard and you got to push yourself. And I think that's the thing that people are trying to look for the perfect solution and like training and off the wall and diet and everything. But the reality is like you need a plan and you need to stick to it. And that's not to say like if it's totally not working, pivot. Like that's fine, but commit. Like if you really want to get better at anything, you got to commit to getting better at it. You can't only do it when it's convenient, only when you feel like you want to. You got to do it on the good days and the bad days.
Sarah, that is some hilarious, amazing, tough love. I'll have to remember that when I start complaining. I'll be like, what would Sierra tell me to do now? Tell me to suck it up. Okay.
I'd be like, you just got to do it.
All right, Sierra, I've got a couple of Patreon questions, but that was really fun. Let's move on to the Patreon stuff. If you want to hear that Q&A and other extra behind the scenes content from this episode and others, head over to patreon.com/testpiece to sign up now. Patrons also get their episodes early and ad-free. There's hours and hours of bonus content there to help you on your own path of going from good to great. Still not sure? There's a free 7-day trial for you to check it out. And to help the show grow, please share this episode with someone who would love it. Okay, see you next week.